essence, in case you didn't know, and welcome back to my channel. It's starting to feel good outside again, and I haven't filmed a video like outside in my neighborhood in like a year or so, and it's just very reminiscent of when I first started my channel. So I hope you guys don't mind the setup. Yeah, but I'm super excited to get into today's video. It is the February book review. If you saw my January book review, I'm so sorry that I did that to you guys. Like, it was so long. And so I definitely, I just read less books this month. And I said that in the last video that it was definitely going to vary from month to month, especially like keeping in mind my school schedule and that I do like student teach and stuff like that right now. Also, I got this from Boohoo, if anyone's gonna ask. It's cropped, super cute. I have nothing underneath of it, so yeah. But honestly, I was just super busy with school and just had some health issues this month, so I only really read 3 books. So this is not going to be anywhere near as long as last time. The last time it was like 2 hours of filming, and then the final video ended up being an hour, and there was like one point where I cut off my entire head. Like, I don't know what was going on. But yeah, so I'm gonna go over 3 books, give a little bit of the plot, my feelings, my thoughts about it, and then an overall rating. Yeah, so I'm just gonna jump right in. Okay, so the first book I technically read in January, and I said in my last video that I read this book in January, but I didn't finish it until February, so that's why I was including it in this video, and I'm glad I did, or I would only have 2 books to talk about. So that is Sorry I Missed You by Susie, Crease. If I'm looking down, it's because my notes are in front of me. So Sorry I Missed You is almost a teen lit book, like a teen fiction book. It's based in Scotland, Ireland, the UK, one of those. It's not like abundantly clear to me as an American, but the names, and because some of the names were very, they're not like general or traditional American names. So the story follows Mac, Sunan, and Maud. I might have butchered the name. Also, the lighting's going in and out a little because the sun is starting to set. I just got off work. So sorry if the lighting is shifting. Mac, Sunan, and Maud. They are 3 different women at 3 different points in their life. So Mackenzie, or Mac, is in college. It's her first year of college. So probably about like 18, 19. Sunan is middle-aged. She's, I think, like early 30s, in like late 20s, early 30s. I want to say she's in her 30s. And Maud is an older. So when the story opens, we see Maud on her wedding day. And she's talking about being in her later years in life and getting remarried, and how she feels it's kind of silly, and just some of her insecurities around the whole thing. And she ends up getting left at the altar basically. She gets ghosted. Sunan was supposed to like have this life with her best friend, but it talks about how they were kind of like conditional best friends, where like, okay, we've been friends for so long that like not being friends anymore would be wrong. And then she ends up getting ghosted, and Mackenzie was supposed to be roommates with her sister. She has a sister, and her sister ends up ghosting her or disappearing as well. So they've all been ghosted or left by someone in their life, and that is how they all end up living together as roommates. And so they are in this split 3-level apartment that is owned by a like second party character. So a little while after all the ladies have been living together, they're not exactly friends or even friendly with each other. They receive a note in the mail that says like, sorry I missed you, please meet me at this coffee shop at, you know, between this time if you want to talk. And each of them, having been ghosted or, you know, left by someone, thinks that the letter or message is for them. So they start going to the coffee shop every single day, hoping to run into the person that wrote them this note or the person that they think wrote them this note. All in all, I gave the book a 4 out of 5. It is not my typical genre. I am very much like a love story or suspense type of girl, and the story isn't really either of those. It's not really, there are elements of love and elements of suspense in both, but it also has some paranormal elements to it. And also the characters are kind of hard to like because we see them presented like, so it's written in split perspective. I do a lot of those split perspective books, especially at this time of the month. At this time of the year I was. It's split perspective, and we see, even though we see their inner thoughts and feelings as well as them interacting with each other, their inner thoughts don't really push them to be better people or for us to have a better understanding of why they're doing the things that they are. Especially Maud. Maud is presented as a jerk, and her inner monologue still kind of presents her as a jerk. Sunan is stuck up, and Mackenzie she's going through some things. She's very secretive, very held back, very shy, and you wouldn't really expect what you get from her or expect her to want to even be friends with Sunan and Maud. But there is a surprise ending. There's a twist at the end that I definitely didn't see coming, and wouldn't have predicted at all. Even though it's not my typical book, it is kind of slow in the beginning. Like, it does kind of take a couple, pages to really get into it and really want to like be invested in these characters. But overall, it was a good book. I would definitely check out some other books by this author. And I think that's really one of my biggest testaments to how good a book is. Does it make me want to read something else that you have written? This one definitely did. I would even like go as far as to say if there was like a spin-off or another installment of this book, even with the same characters, I would be interested to see where life took them after the events in the book. And also there's a very like, it says a lot about moving on without closure, which I think is like, especially in this day, and it's written like in very modern times. Like, there is a lot of talk about like FaceTimes, iPhones, being ghosted, like relatively newer terms. I definitely think that it is written well, and it conveys those ideas, especially nowadays where we are getting ghosted and people aren't getting closure as much and stuff like that. It's definitely a testament on healing without getting the closure that you think you deserve or that you think you need. Yeah, so that's what I have to say about that one. I swear this one's going to be so much quicker and so much easier than last time. Now, the second one I do kind of have a lot to say about, and that is Twice in a Blue Moon by Christina Lauren. Not just this book specifically, but I am a big like fan of Sarah Vargas, and she talks about Christina Lauren quite often. She talks about liking her books and her work and like just kind of being a fan of her in general. So I was pretty excited to like check her out and read. So I had really high expectations for this book, not just of Christina Lauren's writing, but of this book specifically. Almost everyone was, was like really talking about this book, saying they really liked it. It was really well written. And I slightly disagree. So again, like I said, I do typically tend to go for cheesier, softer romance books. That's just the escape. The sun just came back out with full force. That's definitely some of that like escapism in me, where I like to kind of be entranced or in super involved and like invested in this person's romance and love story. So Twice in a Blue Moon follows Tate and Sam. Tate Jones and Sam Brooks, I want to say. Don't quote me. So the story starts a couple years back in London, France, Paris. Hazy. But I did read that one quite a bit ago. It starts there. Tate has just graduated from high school, and she is on a trip with her grandmother, as kind of like a celebratory thing. And Sam is there with his grandfather, just kind of traveling the world. They meet in the hotel, and they kind of start forming this bond, all four of them, and eventually that develops into Tate and Sam having a relationship, eventually leading to, intimacy, and them to kind of exchange some secrets with each other. And we find out that Tate is actually the secret child of this celebrity, famous actor. And she's not a secret child, but after the actor, her father and her mom divorced, they kind of pulled Tate out of the limelight, and no one has seen her since. And she confides this into Sam, and Sam betrays that trust and goes to the media and tells them who she is. And so they find her, and it just kind of changes her life for the better, or the worse, depending on how you look at it. And then they reconnect like 20 some odd years later, both working on the same movie. And the story just kind of goes from there. It's one of those like in another lifetime meet cute stories where it's very cute, and it gives you very much, like in the beginning, it gives you very much, if the circumstances were different, if things were different, you can like see the shadow of my camera. If things were different, if the situation was different, if the circumstances were different, they would be a really cute couple. Also, there is an age difference between the two of them, which I do think is important to note. Tate is 18 in the beginning of the story, and Sam is 21 or 22. So even though it's not a significant difference, it is kind of like your 18-year-old mind is definitely more influenceable than your 21, 22-year-old mind. Speaking as someone who's 22. So I think personally, my biggest issue with the book is that once they flash forward and they're older, Tate is like in her 30s at this point. And she still has like a childlike mentality. I even wrote down childlike thoughts in an adult mind. There are some instances and some moments where it's just like, you're a fully grown woman. This shouldn't bother you, or you shouldn't think like this. And I know that some of it is just because it has to be geared towards its target audience. And I don't know who Christina Lauren typically writes for, but I would say probably older, young adult is kind of where the book fell for me. The reason that bothers me is because there were a lot of moments where I was just like, why would you? And I wrote that down, like, why would you do this? Why would you say that? Why would you care about this thing or that thing? And the ending of the book very much was, why would you, for me? I think it definitely goes into that idea of toxic positivity, where the main character is so blinded by love that they excuse their partner's toxicity, or they excuse behaviors against them. So it's no secret that Sam sells Tate out. That's kind of like explicitly said almost on the cover in the description of the book, and it happens very early on, so it's not giving anything away. But it comes down to the point of, there's a point in the book where Sam explains his reasoning for selling Tate out, and she has to kind of agree to forgive him and like be like, it's okay. And while I can see a world where you could justify what happened, and understand why this person did what they did, does that understanding excuse the negative and toxic behavior? And should we excuse said behavior and feel like it's okay that they did what they did just because we understand why they did what they did? I don't think so. I think that for myself, in real life, you can understand someone's motive and still not forgive them and still not agree. And I think that because of how old Tate was, Tate didn't really miss out on having a childhood. There were even like some moments where she had like had this image of her father and the relationship that they had had, and Sam ruins that for her and is like, oh, that's not what actually happened. Oh, this isn't what really happened. That's not how your dad felt about you. And it does talk a lot about her relationship with her dad and how that played out and how it should have played out. But I just think that there were a lot of times where Sam's mannerisms or character does things to Tate that wouldn't be excused normally, and it definitely doesn't read as destiny or true love to me. So for all those reasons, I gave it a 3 out of 5. Okay, I only read 3 books this month in February. So getting to the last book I read is 180 Seconds by Jessica Park. I gave that one a 4 out of 5. I liked it. So the main character in the book is Allison. Allison grew up in foster care, and she is a late adoptee, where she was adopted when she was 17 and like a senior in high school by a single gay father. And the book opens with the book opens with Simon, Allison's adoptive father, driving her to college for her sophomore year of college. And Allison is very closed off. She doesn't really believe in the good of people. She always believes that people will leave and no one will stick around, because of her experience in foster care. And Allison has a best friend who went through foster care with her. They met when they were very young, and even when they were in different placements and stuff like that, they stayed in contact with each other and stayed friends. And one of the big points, which is like said very early on, and her name is Steffi, is that Allison got adopted and Steffi didn't. And Steffi was with a family that she thought was going to adopt her, like thought it was the place, and they ended up not adopting her and kicking her out when she turned 18 and graduated. And then Allison meets Esben. Esben is the main love interest for the book, and he's also like a social media philanthropist, like very much like Mr. Beast if Mr. Beast was in a college. And didn't do like crazy challenges. He just did like things. And so they have a class together, and she's not on social media at all, which is kind of unrealistic for someone her age. She's not on Twitter, YouTube, like Instagram, Snapchat. She doesn't have any of that. And so she doesn't know who Esben is. But they run into each other, and she like spills her coffee and he helps her clean her coffee, and then she realizes they have a class together. So one night Allison is out and she's upset and like kind of contemplating suicide when Carrie, who's Esben's sister, drags her into one of Esben's videos where you stare into each other's eyes for 180 seconds. So that comes out to be like a minute, 2 minutes, and some seconds. Math is not my strong suit. So, she doesn't want to do it, but she ends up doing it, and that kind of jumps off their relationship. Overall, it was slow. The start of it is so slow. And like Allison's character, for me, it's almost like when people who have never struggled with like a mental health issue try to write mental health issues. Like she's really like in her dorm, door locked, lights off, secluded for the first half of the book. And the only reason she even really goes after Esben or ends up with Esben is because of Steffi. And as the book goes on, her and Esben do start to like form a relationship, and like they kind of get together. And then there's a surprise ending and twist that you can kind of see coming. And I knew that something was gonna happen, but I didn't think what happened was gonna happen. I'm sorry, something made a crazy noise. And so we're like, and the ending comes so off guard that you, even if you had kind of guessed it, you don't see it coming the way that it came. And by the end, I was literally sobbing into, like, I read these on my Kindle, or my, no, I read these on my iPad in the Kindle app. And I was literally like sobbing, crying, tissues, blowing my nose, like having to take breaks to get myself together before I could read the next page. The ending of this book wrecked me. And I don't know if it's just because I've been emotionally vulnerable, or if it was just that good and that unexpected. But the ending of this book will definitely have you like, what? Like, oh my. And so it kind of makes up for how slow the book was in the beginning. So definitely a 4 out of 5. The only reason it didn't get a perfect 5 out of 5 for me is because of how slow the beginning was, and how stereotypically sad and depressed and anxious and lonely Allison was in the beginning. Yes. Okay, that's all I have for you guys this time. Sorry every month can't be a 20 book readathon and an hour-long video, but I doubt that no one wanted to hear me ramble on about these books for an hour like I did last time. I promise to never do that to you guys again. I will literally split it into 2 parts if I ever do that again. Also, in the comments down below, let me know any books that you want me to read, review. I'm open to almost literally anything. The only thing I normally don't typically read is like magic-y books, like true fantasy books. But I'm open to it if you have some really good ones. Yeah, other than that, you guys can keep up with me on my other social media platforms. I am _2_ Essence with an E on Instagram and TikTok, and I have a podcast under the same name as my YouTube video, Diary of a 20-something, and you can add me on Snapchat. It is Essence Loshi. That's all I have for you guys this week. I will see you on Friday.